It has come to the surface that the very controversial National Defense Authorization Act is even worse because of who was behind the terrible language in the bill, which was written by Carl Levin, senator, as well as John McCain, senator. The Obama administration demanded power to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens. It was the White House who removed language that would have protected Americans from Section 1031 of the NDAA bill. Section 1031 of the NDAA bill, which itself defines the entirety of the United States as a battlefield, allows American citizens to be snatched from the streets, carted off to a foreign detention camp, and held indefinitely without trial. The bill states that any person who has committed a belligerent act faces indefinite detention, but no trial or evidence has to be presented. The White House merely needs to make the accusation totally in violation of due process and everything in the Bill of the Rights. The article goes on to discuss how it was the administration that asked us to remove the very language which we had in the bill, which passed the committee. We removed it at the request of the administration. That's Senator Carl Levin talking, and now we have a video clip of him saying the same.
And I'm wondering whether the senator is familiar with the fact that the language which precluded the application of Section 1031 to American citizens was in the bill that we originally approved in the Armed Services Committee, and the administration asked us to remove the language which says that U.S. citizens and lawful residents would not be subject to this section. Is the senator familiar with the fact that it was the administration that asked us to remove the very language which we had in the bill which passed the committee, and that we removed it at the request of the administration that would have said that this determination would not apply to U.S. citizens and lawful residents? I'm just wondering, is the senator familiar with the fact that it was the administration which asked us to remove the very language, the absence of which is now objected to by the senator from Illinois?
I'm familiar now because the senator from Michigan has shared that fact with me.
And so again, that's legislation that would have, at least in the language, protected American citizens from this indefinite detention. And Levin says it was the White House who asked him to remove it. This is a part of a larger problem because so much of the secret junk that goes on is cloaked under national security, which is all part of the executive branch overreach. It's been going on through many presidents, George W. Bush, chief among them. Obama's a big part of that problem as well. I wanted to read this paragraph. The Obama administration never had a problem with Section 1031 of the bill, and indeed acted to ensure it applied to American citizens. Doubts over whether or not Obama would veto the bill only arose out of issues with Section 1032, not the same section, which pertains to the military being required to take custody of individuals. So if Obama vetoes the very large NDAA National Defense Authorization package, it may well be because of the issue with Section 1032 and not with Section 1031, the controversial section talking about indefinite detention of Americans. So we're going to look out for a possible stunt, a switcheroo, making your cake and eating it too, having your cake, eating it too. Senate has now passed the indefinite detention bill, 86-13. That after the House passed the defense bill. This is the reconciled version, the one that the president is now expected to sign. Russia Today writes exactly 220 years to the date after the Bill of Rights was ratified. The U.S. Senate today voted 86-13 in favor of the NDAA for fiscal year 2012, allowing the indefinite detention and torture of Americans. And we are, of course, waiting to see if Obama will sign it as expected, perhaps in the middle of the night, like everything else outside of law. Now, VOA News reports on the House passing the defense bill 283-136, adding that the White House had previously warned of a veto for any bill that challenges or constrains the president's authority to collect intelligence, incapacitate terrorists, and protect the nation. The Obama administration argues that the military, law enforcement officials, and intelligence agents need flexibility to act on a case-by-case basis. Now, Paul Joseph Watson gets into the whole deception around Obama's previous threat to veto this NDAA bill, which he never had any real intention of doing. He, of course, is for the power to indefinitely detain Americans. He just doesn't want the military to supersede his executive branch power to make that determination. Headline, Obama's U-turn on indefinite detention bill, a historic tragedy for rights. Indeed, it is. The Human Rights Watch has labeled President Obama's U-turn a historic tragedy for rights, adding, by signing this defense bill, President Obama will go down in history as the president who enshrined indefinite detention without trial in U.S. law, said Kenneth Roth, executive director of Human Rights Watch. In the past, Obama has lauded the importance of being on the right side of history. Today, he's clearly on the wrong side. And then Paul Joseph Watson adds, while this is a nice tone from the Human Rights Watch and the ACLU, Obama's veto threat was never about stopping detention without trial of American citizens. It was about ensuring that the federal government didn't completely hand such powers over to the U.S. military and enshrining into law Obama's unconstitutional policy of targeting Americans as terrorists without the legal requirement to offer any proof. How disgusting is this? Now, if this whole controversy over the NDAA bill has been confusing to you, Washington's blog has made it about as simple as possible. They have vowed to explain to a 5-year-old why the indefinite detention bill does apply to U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. The bill says that the military must indefinitely detain anyone suspected of helping the bad guys. The article breaks down. One provision says that the mandatory, that is the word must, indefinite detention doesn't apply to U.S. citizens, but the government can indefinitely detain any citizen it feels like without trial. In other words, it's like saying you don't have to lock up Joey for the rest of his life because he called you a mean name, but you can lock him away and throw away the key, then falsely accuse him of being a suspected terrorist if it would make you happy. And that is, in essence, what is in this bill. The determination is whether it's mandatory to indefinitely detain a U.S. American citizen suspected of being involved in al-Qaeda or terrorism, or whether it's at the president's discretion. Either way, it's total tyranny, totally in violation of the Bill of Rights. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff stuffed into this terrible National Defense Authorization Bill, including Kurt Niemeyer's NDAA gives the Pentagon green light to wage internet war. The following language is in the final reconciled bill that will now travel to the Senate and ultimately to Obama's desk, where it will be signed into law. Now it has passed the Senate. Despite earlier assertions that he would veto the legislation, Congress affirms that the Department of Defense has the capability and, upon direction by the President, may conduct offensive operations in cyberspace to defend our nation, allies, and interests, subject to the policy, principles, and legal regimes that the Department follows for kinetic capabilities, including the law of armed conflict and the war powers resolution. It's a bunch of mumbo-jumbo, people, all this kinetic action talk. They have instituted total tyranny, and now they're going to go after you on the internet as well. Now, of course, as you see behind me, with Obama prepared to sign, Pennsylvania senators get Twitter bombed over defense bill. Of course, everybody is angry about this bill, rightfully so. They should be most unhappy that Obama is going to sign it after threatening to veto it. Of course, it was never over the indefinite detention. It was over his power as president, because all these presidents have put in an overreach of executive power through their executive orders, their signing statements, and the rest of it. George W. Bush did it. This is just an extension of that.
And we are joined by Republican frontrunner, presidential candidate Ron Paul. Even mainstream media admits he's in second, third, and in some cases first place. And, of course, in national polls, he's the only person who can beat President Obama. And he joins us today. Congressman, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Alex. Good to be with you again.
It's good to have you with us. There is so much happening. I've got a lot of questions, but what is most important, Congressman, right now on your radar? Now they want to go after Syria. It's now admitted the U.S., Israel, and others are staging giant military attacks inside Iran. What do you make of Congress not being consulted on that?
Well, unfortunately, that's been happening for a long time, and Congress is just totally negligent on this. And, the other night when they were talking about this in the debates, on what the president's responsibility is when they, shoot down or are able to get one of our drones. And the argument was, should we go in and get it, or should we just go in and destroy it? And I tried to get attention on that. My suggestion would be, why don't we avoid it by not sending drones over a sovereign nation just looking for a problem to start another war? I mean, they never talked about, the lack of wisdom of having been over there and losing a drone over a foreign nation, which we consider an enemy. I just think that is it's a reflection of a policy that has to be changed.
What's your view on the NDAA and the Inde Posse Comitatus and the declaration of the whole world as a battlefield?
Yeah, well, I think the significant difference is not so much in what they have done, but the announcement and the arrogance of it all, that they actually put it into law. Our government's been involved with our CIA.